morning and welcome to a Tuesday edition of Pot Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. Large enough to serve you, small enough to care. We got a great show lined up for you today. We got one of my former teammates, John Kitna, whose son is a Florida Gator commit. Is going to join us first, and in the second portion, good old Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show will finish the show off. But we're going to go straight to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by John Kitna, 15-year NFL vet, the quarterback position. Good morning, John. How are you?
Man, great. Thanks for having me on. It's good to see you.
You too, buddy. Let's talk about, obviously, I brought you on. Your son is a Florida Gator commit for 2021. We're going to get to that in a minute. But we're going to go back to you. You grew up in, I want to say in Washington.
Yep.
You went to Central Washington University, a small school up there. Talk a little bit about your career there, playing small-time college football, what it was like, and then we'll talk about how you got your chance in the NFL.
Yeah, I grew up in the inner city, and so a lot of times in the inner city, you don't have as much information as other people. So didn't understand the recruiting thing, didn't understand, how it worked. I didn't get recruited, to be honest with you, and I always thought I should. Looking back on it, I'm a 6'3", 160-pound quarterback. Played 1 year at quarterback. We handed the ball off all the time. Wasn't, there was other quarterbacks. I now knowing it's just there's a big world out there. When you're in the inner city, you feel like your whole world is right there. But I thought baseball was my thing anyways. I kind of hated football, to be honest. I just played it because my buddies played it, and it was what you do in the fall. But played baseball. I thought baseball was my thing. Didn't get recruited or anything like that either with that. But late in my senior year, it was actually during basketball season, a college coach came by from an NAIA school, which NAIA it's kind of hard to explain to people. Back in that day, there was no scholarship. There was nothing. You showed up, they gave you a jock strap and a T-shirt. That's all you got. And so, but they were pretty successful. Central Washington was, and so they really wanted my buddy. My buddy was a receiver that was really good. That had some Division I, stuff out there, but it just didn't pan out for him. And so they jumped on him, and they knew to get him, they needed to get me. And so I was kind of throw-in part of it. And, I say that half joking, half not, because when I showed up on campus, there's 12 quarterbacks there. And our coach is handing out footballs to all the quarterbacks. Here's the starter guy, here's the second guy, here's the third guy. He's handing footballs because you have to take your own football with you. There's no equipment, people. There's none of that. And I was the only kid that didn't get a football. So I like to say I was a 12-string quarterback, which in essence, probably after the third or fourth guy, we were all the 12-string quarterback at that point. So that was kind of, my process and how I got to college. And I felt like quitting after my first 2 or 3 days. You get 0 reps, and they don't even know your name. But I just had a good buddy who was actually a senior receiver that said, "Do not quit. Just hang with it. You're gonna be fine." And I'm glad I listened to him, because 2 weeks later I was the 3rd-string quarterback, and then obviously I played after redshirt my freshman year. I played for 4 straight years.
Yep, you said a ton of records there, won a national championship. And talk a little bit about, when you come from these small schools, I think now more kids that come from small schools get an opportunity for the National Football League. But back in our day, you really didn't get one. But tell the story about Dennis Erickson coming and working out. I think it was his nephew, a wide receiver, and how he noticed you.
Yeah, so, I had given my life to the Lord going in, during my 3rd year in college. Played that year and played the next year, and then going into my senior year, my wife and I, we were just praying to have an opportunity to get in the NFL. Things had gone well. We were setting all kinds of records. I was, NAIA All-American, all that stuff, and we just wanted a chance. Well, right before my senior year, a kid transfers in out of Fresno State, and he had 1 year left. He came from Fresno State, find out he's Dennis Erickson's nephew. And so, whatever. We play that year, and his mom and Dennis's wife are sisters. So they'd be at every game. They were like super fans. And that was the year the NFL had 2 byes. So each team had 2 byes. So Coach Erickson came to a couple of our games, but don't think he was like overly impressed with us, and, with me or anything like that. But at the end of the year, in March, when they were having the University of Washington Senior Day, he let his nephew know. He said, "Hey, why don't you guys come over to the facility, bring John with you, and I'll tell our scouts to let all the NFL scouts that are in town testing the guys at UW that you guys are over here and they can come test you, because they're not going to drive to Central Washington to test you. They're just not going to do that." And so we drive over that day. It's about 2.5 hour drive. We drive over, we meet with Coach Erickson. He's just like, "Look, I'm just trying to get you guys an opportunity to get into a camp. And we'll see, hopefully these guys will be over here in a couple hours. They're over at UW right now, whatever." So he tells us, "Go downstairs, hang out." We're down there for 2 hours. And I think he felt bad because nobody was showing up. There's no cell phones or internet back then. So nobody's showing up. He comes down. He's like, I don't know where these guys are at. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's just go out. The running back coach is here, because his nephew was a running back. And he said, "The running back coach is here, and let's just go out and work you guys out." I think he just kind of felt bad for us. We ran a 40. We're getting ready to run another one. I don't think he was overly impressed. He's like, "That's enough. Let's go over here." To running back over there, they do running back drills, and he takes me to do QB drills. And I'd say to this day, I don't think I've ever thrown the football better than that day. And there was no receivers out there. He had his 13-year-old son, Bryce. He would just stand in spots. All right, stand where a comeback would be. Stand where a dig is at. And he's telling me, "Okay, on this one, I want you to slide here, slide there." Now, I must have went an hour. It was like, as the workout went on, I'm like, man, I think he's actually liking what I'm doing. And then the general manager comes out, Randy Mueller, and they're talking to me. And then right at the end of the workout, Jacksonville shows up. And they came over from the University of Washington. They come walking out on the field, and Randy Mueller says, "You're not working out. You're not working out for them." I'm just like, all right. And so that was how it was. They brought me back 2 weeks later when all the players were in town, and I had another workout with 3 or 4 receivers, and all the coaches were there and everything like that. But that's kind of how it happened.
Yeah, that's a great story. And then you're on the practice squad with the Seahawks, and then I think Warren Moon was the quarterback at the time, and you finally got an opportunity, and then you moved on to Cincinnati, Detroit, Cowboys. You and I were in Cincinnati together. I like to tell the story to all my buddies how I used to wear you and Carson Palmer out when we used to throw to the goalposts and the garbage cans. Used to wear you guys out.
I'm pretty sure all 3 of us tell the same exact story, and we're the ones that were winning.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Those are some fun days.
Yes. But John, talk about what it was like. You were a long-time quarterback in the NFL, fortunate to play a long, long time. Talk a little bit, and then we'll talk about your coaching career, but what you've kind of taken from what you learned as a player at the quarterback position and some of the coaches that you played under to what you're doing now as a high school and one time an NFL coach.
Yeah. Well, I was fortunate my first year in the league to have John Freeze, who was on the roster. He was there first couple years, but my first year, because he just literally I was his shadow. Wherever he went, that's where I was at. He taught me protections. He taught me how to meet. He taught me how to watch film. He taught me, how to throw certain routes. And so I was just real fortunate to have a guy like him that taught me those things and taught me, just kind of how to make through the NFL. And so then, like you said, getting a chance to play for, 15 years, 16 years, if you count the practice squad year, but getting a chance to play for Dennis Erickson, who has had some of the most prolific offenses ever, really good in passing game. Bob Bratkowski, our coordinator, when we were in Cincinnati and when I was in Seattle, and then getting a chance to play for Marvin Lewis and Ken Zampese, who Ken was under Mike Martz in Detroit, and then going to Detroit and getting a chance to play for Mike Martz for 2 years and really seeing the detail that he puts into the position. He taught me things in year 11 at quarterback that I'd never heard before. And my arm got stronger. I got more accurate. I became a better player just because of the things he was teaching me in year 11. And then the whole scheme of how he does things, it's really similar to what we run even at the high school level. And then getting a chance to play for Jason Garrett. And really, Jason helped me take a scheme that was similar to Martz, similar to Erickson, and make it simpler in terms of how you call it, because you know how wordy those plays can get. So, those are the things that we try to do at the high school level. We focus a lot on footwork, a lot on the fundamentals, especially at the quarterback position. And we've really seen those things pay off for us. But yeah, I had a chance to play for some of the good, coordinators in this league.
When you look back at your career, who would you say was the most talented wide receiver you played with?
Yeah, the most talented, it was Calvin Johnson.
Yeah.
But I got to play with Joey Galloway for 3 years of my career. He could run by anybody. You could not outthrow him. It was impossible. And so that was a lot of fun, getting a chance to play with him. But playing with Chad in Cincinnati, and really for me, I got a chance to play with him for basically 3 years, and really kind of be a part of his development process, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, there was, as you know, there's a time he was uncoverable. Really, the only way you could cover him was to basically play two-man to him, and even then he beat some people, and so he was special. But then at the end of my career, that 1 year in Dallas in 2010, getting a chance to play with Dez Bryant his rookie year, that was awesome. But the guy that I would say is kind of the most underrated of everybody that I played with would be Miles Austin. If he could have stayed healthy, his route running was unbelievable. He could beat any coverage at any time. He was just his quest for improvement was unmatched. And so, but if I had to pick one, most talented, Calvin. The one that I had the most success with, Chad.
Yeah. When you look on, once you were done playing, you coached at a bunch of different high schools. What made you want to be a high school coach? And obviously you're a background high school coach now, but I've always said my dad was a high school coach. I did it for 12 years. A high school coach has more influence on a kid than any other coach they'll ever have. Just talk about how you enjoy working with kids at that age.
Yeah, that's just it right there. I got a text from a kid today. I've been at this school since March. I was on campus for 4 days. We get shut down with the COVID thing. I'm not around the kids. We're meeting. We're still doing character development on Zoom and all that stuff. And then, we've had a chance to kind of get back to workouts this summer for a couple weeks. But I get a text from a kid who just today, and he's on defense. And I spend most of my time in offense. But he's like, Coach, I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you. I see how much you really focus on the character and the difference it's making in all of our lives, but in my life. And that's really why I like coaching at the high school level, is the opportunity to have an impact on young men before they enter the real world, so to speak. And if you're fortunate to coach some that go off and play in college and play in the pros, great. But, you want to give them the character pieces and the things, the traits that they're going to need to be successful in life. And I think you have a really great opportunity to do that at the high school level, because it's less about X's and O's and more about relationships.
I got to ask you, because you went back, you coached the Cowboys. Dak was the quarterback. And, you and I have sat in a lot of quarterback meetings with different guys that are quarterback coaches and coordinators, and they rewind that film wanting to know why you did this and why you did that, but they never actually played the position.
Yeah.
You played the position. So do you think that Dak or whoever the other quarterbacks were had a little more respect for you as their coach since you actually played the position at a high level?
Yeah, I think so. And, for Dak, he's had former quarterbacks anyways. Wade Wilson, his first 2 years, and then Kellen, his third year, and then obviously myself. But I think it helps for sure. And for me, it wasn't that long ago. So I actually could pull up some tape and say, hey, on this is kind of, some of the things I learned. And a lot of things I would tell them is, you don't have to make the same mistake I made. I already paid that cost for you. So just learn from that. You get a rotation into a deep over, just go to the dig. Forget the deep over. You're not going to get it. Go to the dig. You go throw an interception if you try to deep over. I've done that already. So, yeah, I definitely think that there's a little bit more credibility for sure with guys that have played.
All right, let's talk about your son, Jalen Kitna, who is his 2021 commit to the Gators, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so, it's interesting because college recruiting has changed so much. With the SEC network, kids can see what's going on campus with Twitter, all that stuff. Have y'all ever been to campus, to the University of Florida?
So we unofficially went out there during March, I think it was, maybe April.
Okay.
My wife and my son, we flew out there. He was committing. He knew he was going to commit there, but we just like, let's just lay eyes on it so we at least have a point of reference. So we literally flew in, walked around for a half a day, walked around the next morning, and then flew right back out, less than 24 hours. But at least he could see, okay, there's the stadium. Okay, here's where I would potentially be living my freshman year. And it was really good for my wife because she felt like that was a big city, but understand it's really a college town.
Yes.
And so that was really nice for us to be able to see that, and for him to just see the campus. We literally walked around the whole campus, just following a map.
We're speaking with John Kitna on the Titan More Hotline. His son Jalen Kitna is a quarterback, be here with the Gators in a couple of years. Now, you coached him right before you went to the Cowboys, and now you're going back to coach him.
Yeah.
I coached my son. My dad coached me. Is it one of those deals where y'all kind of butt heads at times? Y'all leave everything on the practice field when you get home? You don't talk football, or do y'all talk football at home?
Yeah, so I coached my older one too, and my older one's a little more like me, and so we had some headbutting a little bit his freshman and sophomore year, but then he's actually spoke to kids that have their dads coaching them at a young age or whatever, and he said the best thing. He said, my junior and senior year were the most enjoyable time that I ever had in football because I stopped looking at him as dad and looked at him as coach. As soon as I made the change, he said, there's my coach instead of my dad. Now I didn't get as offensive and didn't get so sensitive if he was coaching me hard. Jalen's different. Jalen's super coachable. And he's just very like, man, you say it, I'm doing it. And he wants to know the why. He'll ask you the why, but even without the why, he's just going to do it. So he and I have never really butted heads, and he likes talking football. He's a football nut, Shane. Like, he wants to know coverages. He wants to watch film. He wants to emulate guys that have played in the league and stuff like that. So, he likes talking about it. The older one, not as much. We got away from the field, and that, it's just every kid is different.
So, Jalen, tell the Gator Nation here what kind of player he is. Is he a dual threat kind of guy, or a pocket passer, or what?
Yeah, he hasn't been dual threat to this point because he was still growing. I mean, he's grown 6 inches in the last, year and a half. Yeah. He's put on, 70 pounds in the last year and a half. So, and he should be a class of 22. He just turned 17. And so he should be a class back. But so he's a little bit of a late bloomer, but he's an ascending player. And he'll be a dual threat this year. When he was a sophomore, I protected him. He probably shouldn't have been playing, but we didn't have many other answers at a quarterback position. I think he weighed 140 pounds. And, we're playing in the 6A out in Arizona. And, he was getting his head knocked off, but he stood in there and made some incredible throws. But then sophomore year, he did a little bit of running. But this year, he'll definitely be much more of a dual threat. He's very explosive. He jumps 10.5 broad jump, 36 inches in the vertical, runs really well, runs 4.7 or less. So
basically,
I'm really looking forward to that.
He got all the athletic ability from mom, right?
You know that, no question.
Hey, so take me through the process right now. I mean, he's committed to the Gators. A lot of things may change over time. You never know how it is these days. But what made him excited to want to go play for Dan Mullen and Brian Johnson, the quarterback coach?
Yeah, he was committed to Boston College. He really liked Boston College, liked their staff, liked the system that they were going to run, and then of course their staff got let go. So, in fairness to both them and to him, he opened his recruiting back up, and within a couple of days, that's when he started hearing from Florida. And the great thing about Florida is, before they ever started recruiting him, Dak had told us all about Brian, all about Coach Mullen, and he couldn't have talked any more high about them. And he was just talking in general. He wasn't trying to recruit Jalen for them or anything like that. It was just a general conversation. So I had that background information, and then once they offered him to start recruiting him, and Jalen is very relational, and so Coach Mullen, Coach Johnson, they were great about really reaching out to him, finding out who he really was, understanding that his mom is important to him, and then really the way that Coach Johnson would speak and talk about football just really, it turned Jalen on to that place. And then watching, Coach Mullen, the success he's had with all different types of quarterbacks. And that's one of the things that Coach Mullen talked about is, we're going to tailor make the offense to the strengths of our team and our quarterback. And he has, a lot of people say that, but that's what he's done everywhere he's been. So, just those things. And then obviously when you get a chance to play in the SEC, Jalen, like I said, he's an ascending player, and we feel like he has a chance to be, one of the best, if not the best in the country this year as a senior. And going forward, he's got everything you need at the quarterback position. So he just, those factors were huge. And then lastly, getting a chance to meet their chaplains, Joel, having a chance to meet them and over Zoom and talk to them and really hear their heart and how they try to develop players that have that want to walk with the Lord. Those were the huge factors for him.
Good stuff. Last thing before I let you go, I want to talk a little NFL. You think Patrick Mahomes is the most talented guy you've ever seen?
Man, that's pretty crazy. Certainly Brett Favre was ridiculous. The things that he could do with a football and the way he could throw a football, Aaron Rodgers, Peyton, Dan Marino, these guys were super talented. But when you look at, it is the perfect storm for Patrick Mahomes with the speed that they have around him, and then the ability of Andy Reid to be able to think outside the box and always exploring different ways to exploit the talents that he has, both around Pat, but the way that Pat can throw a football, it's ridiculous. And the thing that it's hard to find anybody to say anything bad about the kid. And so when you got all that stuff, it's a pretty good combination.
Yeah. So where do y'all stand with high school football out in the state of Texas right now?
Yeah, I think, kind of like everybody else, we're moving forward like we're going to play and until that somebody tells us different. And so we're supposed to start camp August 3rd. And we're trying to be safe and trying to do all the right things. But at the same time, this thing is a virus and we don't have a vaccine for it. And so I really feel like there's two choices, like do nothing, stay in our homes and do nothing across the board throughout the country until there is a vaccine, or we have to find a way to deal with it. And unfortunately, people are going to get sick and some people get really sick. And that's an unfortunate thing. But, we're just waiting. And right now the Texas, UIL is telling us that, hey, we're moving forward until we know differently. And that's what we're doing.
Good deal. I see you already got a little Gator poster or something up there behind the door right there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We're Gatored out. Jalen is super excited and, ready to get to the swamp.
All right, man. Well, Kit, hey man, I appreciate you taking the time to join us. Stay in touch. And when you're in Gainesville, let's get together, my man.
Thanks for having me on. I can't wait.
All right, that's John Kitna. Join us on the Titan MR Hotline. We're going to take a timeout. When we come back, we're going to be joined by good old buddy Martin. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios. We'll be right back.
Time out! Time out! Hey! Time out! Time out! Time out! There we go. Good.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills.
Let's give them something to cheer for now.
Our gridiron sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Area Rug Masters, your number one choice in Gainesville for all your area rug cleaning services. Meldon Law, where you matter most. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte.
Bob in trouble, gets rid of the ball. Big hit.
Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Celebration Point Town Center, The Digital Mortgage Guide, Adams Ribs, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Center State Bank, Gator Bait Media, Davis Gainesville Chevrolet, Miapa Latin Cafe, Gators Dockside, Aikido America Martial Arts and After School. Doreen Weeby Realtor, Caldwell Banker, MM Parish. Radware, Style Cuts, Wrap Spot, Ironwood Golf Course, TB Financial, Chris Doring Mortgage, Meadowbrook Golf Course, Darshakow Insurance, MB Listings, and Pomodoro Cafe. If you are interested in promoting your business on this show, you can visit our website, potupwithshane.com, and click on the Advertise button or call Freddie at 352-284-3733. Again, thank you for all the great businesses that support this show. Please remember, if you like what we are doing here, thank our sponsors and support the businesses that support us.
He's looking, still looking, he's going for the end zone, he's got a touchdown!
Welcome back to a Tuesday edition of the program, coming to you live from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Really want to thank John Kitna for joining us. Now we're going to go here in just a second to the Titan Tomorrow hotline. But first, at Center State Bank, we put business first. We are the largest community bank in the state of Florida and understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. Center State has 5 convenient Alachua County locations to serve you better. Center State Bank, member FDIC. We're going to go back to the Titan Tomorrow hotline now, and we're joined by good old Buddy Martin from the Buddy Martin Show that you can check out weekdays on Facebook Live around 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Good morning, Buddy. How are you?
Good morning, Shane. And I'm doing good. I got to get one of those T-shirts. Good old Buddy Martin. I'm going to start wearing it on your show.
That's right. That's right. Well, Buddy, first, before we get into what the SEC, I asked you this. I don't know why I always ask you. I didn't talk really golf yesterday, but the PGA Tour, it's pretty much the only live sports we have going on right now, and it's been outstanding. I don't know if you saw the ending of that tournament last week.
Oh, yeah.
Colin Morikawa defeats Justin Thomas. The first playoff hole, those 2 putts that they hold, both to make birdie, were unbelievable.
Unbelievable. Right on top of him. A 50-footer, 45-footer, and then Morikawa knocks it on top of him, which I don't know. That was amazing. That was like a really, really big-time golf right there.
No doubt. And
it's fun to watch.
They continue playing at the same at Jack Nicklaus's place there at Muirfield Village this week. Big tournament, and I can't wait to watch it. The main pairing is Tiger with Brooks Koepka and Rory McIlroy, so that should be very entertaining.
Yeah, kind of interesting. What would have happened? What would the crowd reaction been to those 2 putts? We didn't have a crowd, but that would have been the place would have broken up.
Yeah, it would have been unbelievable. Okay, so let's move forward. Yesterday, the SEC athletic directors meet with the commissioner. Your thoughts on anything that came out of that meeting?
Yeah, I don't know what I was expecting, but I guess just waiting and listening to see what he was going to say. He didn't say a whole lot, but what could he say? I know that he's under the gun. And I will say about that, he's on top of what has to be said. And some people criticize him because they want more answers. I got to give him props for having something, a plan, a contingency. He's like, okay, today is this, we're adjusting, we're going this way. It sounded rather grim, like the picture is not only not better, it's worse probably. But I think Sankey has a plan in the event there is a college football season, and it changes every 48 hours, 24 hours. So I think he did a pretty good job. I didn't learn anything I probably didn't already know. Did you?
No, buddy, I've been very optimistic all along that we were going to start the season and play in the fall. But I just got this funny feeling yesterday that, and I have no information, obviously, I don't think anybody does, but it's just a gut feeling that I don't think we're going to play college football. Yeah. I sure hope I'm wrong. I think if we do play, I think they're going to play in the spring. I know a lot of people say they can't do that for whatever reason, but I just don't see how they can play college football during the fall this year. And I know we've talked about, conference games. I have issues with that too, because you put so much time and effort into getting prepared for a football season. And, I coached a long time, and
high school football games, your season's only 10 games. And, buddy, I can't tell you how fast those 10 games go. And if we only play 7 or 8 games, the season's going to be over before we know it. And I understand why they want to stay within the conference, because we're not sure, what the other conferences, they're testing this, that, and the other. But I'm at the point now where I'd like to see a full football season played. And if that is to happen and we have to wait till the spring, I'd rather do that than trying to modify this. And, is the ACC, how many games they're going to play? How are we going to determine who's a champion, first of all? That's why we're teeing it up, right? Is to see who the national champion is.
Yeah, it's kind of like the Orlando Apollos of the whatever that conference was that Coach Spurrier coached in. They didn't complete the season, but Coach Spurrier declared himself champion. And by the way, so did the betting services. So I don't know. I think it's understandable. People will not be optimistic. I'm like you. I'm probably a little bit more of an optimist than you are. I'm beginning to have a lot of doubt about it. I'm trying to have a takeaway of this. That is, and I wrote about it again last week, and you and I have talked about it numerous times, that what can we learn from this and what changes need to be made that we're going to make anyway, and why don't we go ahead and make them? And if we have a season, look, I'm going to tell you, if they play the 6-game season and then has some kind of bowl playoff or whatever it might be, you'd accept. You'd take it, wouldn't you? Of course you would. And my strong feeling is if there's any way possible of getting a half a dozen to 8 games in, after the first of the year, after in October and possibly November, they're going to do it. There's too much depending on it. They have to have. I mean, some of these schools, never mind the athletic departments, some of the schools themselves are going to be in trouble. But it's a survival of the fittest, and the teams in the program who got reserves. And somebody said the other day, I forget who it was, one of the coaches, we've always got reserves. The comment Urban Meyer made the other day was, you cannot play in the spring. That's his belief. So we're kind of all over the place on this. I think we're at a point where let's just stop speculating and wait and see. And Shane, we talk football year round, whether we have a season or not. So for us in our shows, that's not going to change. We're still going to talk football. So we can't do anything about the COVID, except in my case, I'm staying home all the time. Do the best you can. Like that old Maya Angelou quote, do the best you can till you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So we will see what happens. And I'm hopeful. Meanwhile, there is some news around. What do you think of the JT Daniels waiver happening so fast for the Georgia Bulldogs?
I think it's totally ridiculous. Nothing against JT Daniels, and I do think kids should get a freebie to transfer, because coaches can leave whenever they want, and they continue coaching right away. I just don't understand how his waiver was approved so quickly when you have Joey Gatewood from the Jacksonville area, who was at Auburn, is now at Kentucky, but that hasn't been granted yet. There was a kid, I think, from Georgia that transferred to Illinois due to illness in a family. He still hasn't been declared if he can play yet or not. I don't know what the NCAA, how they do all this. It makes absolutely no sense to me. And like I said, nothing against JT Daniels. I'm all for the kid being able to play right away. But it's just funny how they decide who gets the waiver right away and who doesn't.
Yeah, last night on our show, we talked about it. If Justin Shorter doesn't get his waiver and JT Daniels does, man, there are going to be some angry Gators.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. No doubt about that. I want to go back to football, buddy, because I know you've talked several times about how you would like to change the playoff system.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think if we're fortunate enough to play football this year, we all know that the Power 5 schools are probably leaning towards all just playing within your conference. Well, what better way than to go ahead and declare all the conference champs, move on to the playoffs, and then you have a couple of at-large bids, if you got a Florida and Alabama both undefeated playing in the SEC championship game, maybe the team that loses still gets in that large bid. But this might be the year that you have to do something, because without playing some of these major non-conference games, I don't know how the selection committee, can really sit down and decide what 4 teams go to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think that's a possibility. There are ways to do that. If the coast is clear on the COVID, you can do a lot of creative things, and that's one. And I think there has to be some kind of SEC championship game, because that is such a big moneymaker. I talked to Paul Feinbaum about it yesterday. And by the way, Paul Feinbaum's my guest on Thursday on Buddy Marty Show. So we talked we talked about that, and I think that your plan could work. I think that's one that could work. And again, it just depends on how many games you get in. I think they have to have some kind of season, some kind of playoff, and do the best they can, and call it a day by Thanksgiving or whatever, and then say there's opportunities to play after the first of the year for at least maybe a couple championship rounds and play them. Otherwise, it is what it is. It does these things to natural disasters, wars, things like this happen. Nothing like this has ever happened. But back in the day in World War II, they had a suspension. Was it 1943 or whatever? So they'll adapt, and there is next season. I don't know how they're going to adjudicate the whole thing with kids and their eligibility, but I would think they would say, if you couldn't play and you want to play, you get an extra year. What do you think?
I sure hope so. I don't think it's fair to these kids at all. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. Buddy, I know you've been on, the Power 5 only playing football. Did you see how much money the MAC is going to lose not playing the Big Ten? Over $17 million
That's amazing,
that the MAC is going to lose. And then I saw where Kent State's going to lose about $6 million because they had 3 games scheduled this year, 3 big paydays against Kentucky, Alabama, and Penn State. So I honestly don't know how these mid-tier or whatever you want to call them programs are going to make it. I really don't. It's a shame.
Well, it is a shame. There is a way to do it. Like I told you, I'm not trying to be cruel, but it's not football welfare. It's not a healthy model for the small schools to be depending on. The way to do it is to go back to Division I, Division II, and have Division II give them a playoff, and let them have their own league, their own TV package, whatever, because it's all about the TV. The stadiums are now going to be in our living room, almost 80%. The package you put on television is going to be your league, going to be your play. So why not look at it and say, you know what? It's not really a good model to having these small teams have a payday, go out and get beat 73-0 and get $1 million to sustain their program. It's like sacrificial lambs. And I know there's always the Appalachian states and the good stories like that. I was talking to Brady Ackerman the other day about Jackson State. They have a very healthy program there. They draw big crowds out there. And they, the historical black colleges, they call themselves, they figured out a model to do some things. Why can't the Division II schools figure it out and stop depending on those paydays, which I think are now any cash that comes in is going to be earmarked for something. The university presidents have got their eyes on that money as well. And you're not going to have the crowds. The TV packages may get better, maybe not. But that's where the money is. Now, TV packages can't live with the FBS and the FCS playing each other. They're different leagues. It's like AAA baseball and Major League Baseball.
No, I totally get that. But, I mean, the Penn State versus Kent State is usually not on TV. It may be on a pay-per-view or an ESPN3 or something like that. But I just don't know how they can survive, even if they play in their own division. And Brady's right, but Jackson State gets a big payday when they play Southern Miss, and they won't be playing Southern Miss this year.
They do, but then they get some government money too, being historical. But anyway, it's not easy to solve. I know your heart's in the right place and you're compassionate, and I'm compassionate about it. But I think it's time I have this category, which I use in my column, changes we needed to make anyway. And I got a whole list of them. And you know what they are. You and I have had this discussion now for how many months? We talked about it and trying to do something. You got to separate the FBC and FBS and have their own playoff system. And you got to ramp up the TV product, increase the playoff the games and teams from 8 to 12, and make some changes that you should have made anyway. This will be a different year, so do the best you can and save that money for a rainy day.
Yep. Refresh your vehicle and your brand with a vehicle wrap from Wrap Spot. July is your lucky month at Wrap Spot. Mention promo code Shane and receive 13% off your vehicle wrap. We're visiting with Buddy Martin. You can check him out on Twitter at Buddy Show. Also, check his show out on Facebook Live weeknights around 9 Eastern. It's called The Buddy Martin Show on Facebook Live. What you got on the show tonight, buddy?
Well, I got you, and which is always good. And David Moulton, a friend of mine from down in Southwest Florida, who does a Miller and Moulton show. He worked for CBS and does the Saturday games in the press box with the team there. And he also does. He had been doing some golf with Fox, but Fox had to have golf anymore. And David's a very broad, knowledge-based guy who knows a lot about the SEC and about sports in general. He's always a good guest. Just by the way, for a guy who knows a lot about a lot of things. So looking forward to that. Got a great lineup of guests this week, as I said. We're going to have Jason Whitlock on Thursday, a guy that you may like, may not, but he's going to be on Thursday. And Shane, if I may, I don't know what our time situation is. I just want to tell people I wanted to tell people we're really working hard on this issue of the name of Gatorbait, the magazine. We want to do it right, and we have a really major investigative job going on by our people. Thanks to Freddie Weeby. We're going to have a poll soon. We're going to talk to athletes soon. We're going to make sure we get African-American voices soon. We're going to get our panel and board together and talk about it. And we're going to deep dive on it. We're not going to just hit a lick superficially and say, oh, what should we do? You get an answer in a hurry. I know how you stand. Don't change anything. Don't change anything. But change is here. And I don't know what we're going to do because really won't be I'll be making the final decision, but it'll be based on research and what people, feel and think and what's accurate and what we need to know. So that's going to be a big help to us in terms. Did you see the story about what's happening in Texas?
I did not.
The Eyes of Texas will be sung as a school song, which for a while that was going to go away. And now at Royal Memorial Stadium, they're renaming the field for a couple of Black Heisman Trophy winners, Earl Campbell and Ricky Williams. And the guy I didn't know of, Julius Whittier, was the first Black football letterman. He'll get a statue there. So they're making changes out in Austin, and this is what it's about. There are going to be changes. There has already been changes. Speaking of changes, JUCO has put off their season. Junior college football now will not be played until next spring. So there are going to continue to be changes. So I think what my philosophy behind this, and this, is that if you're going to make changes, make good changes, and make some that you can live with long term. So out of this whole thing, something will come that will be worth keeping.
Yes, I agree with that. Let's see, there were some other notes we had.
Well, I got one for you if you'd like. And you can go ahead. If you want to go ahead, I just had one I wanted to ask you about. There's a website called Fansided. And most of these things like this I ignore because it's just somebody with an opinion, and I get a little bored by it after a while. Get bored by my own opinions. I don't know those. But when people start ranking schools and start talking about players and quarterbacks, I don't find too many of them authentic. How can you have any kind of list of quarterbacks, preseason, all conference, and ignore the great work like Kyle Trask? And now you've got a situation in Georgia where Jamie Newman was the be-all, end-all, greatest of all time, and now JT Daniels is there, and they changed their tune up in Athens. All of a sudden, he's the greatest thing. But back to this story. It's pretty good. What teams are poised to win a national championship that haven't won one in a while? In some cases, maybe never. What teams are ready to win? I saw this list, you could probably guess it. And by the way, if you want to take a shot, go ahead. You guess most of them. But I added a couple. Go ahead. You got something?
When you say in a while, like you're talking 20, 30 years, never, or like
no, but mostly not in the last 20, 30, or even the last 15. And I'll give you a couple. Okay.
Well, I can think of two right off the top of my head.
All right.
Well, Georgia hasn't won since what,
that's number one, 1980.
Let's see, our last was in 08, so we're looking at 12 years ago. Right. I don't know if that qualifies.
Yeah, that qualifies. Yeah, Florida, Georgia are 1 and 2 in this list.
Okay, well then, I'm going to say Oklahoma because they're in the hunt every year, and they haven't
got
won
number 3. I got number 4. Oklahoma's number 4.
Gosh, let's see who else. I'm not even going to
think East. No, Michigan's not in it, but some people think it should be. How about Penn State?
Yeah, Penn State. I don't know. When's the last time they won a title?
Gosh, I don't even know. I don't even know. It's been Joe Paterno days. I don't even know last time. But they're knocking on the door, right?
Yep.
Rick says in Nebraska. Somebody wrote in.
I don't think Nebraska. I saw a thing today that Scott Frost is on the hot seat out there.
Yeah, he is. He hadn't done it 2 years, man. Look at Mullen. Look at Frost. Aren't you glad Florida got Mullen and not Frost?
Yeah. Yep.
Finally, the two that you didn't mention. Well, Oregon is one of the ones which they're doing a great job. They're knocking on the door. I'm not sure they got the quarterback to get them all the way, but their program has really come a long way. And then I would throw in. And last night we had this question. If you're going to put this list, you have to think about down the line, possibly Notre Dame, possibly Auburn maybe. So it's an interesting thing to think about. Teams that are really getting close to win. They're putting Mullen in there. In fact, they put him in. They got Florida, Georgia 1 and Florida 2. So that ramps up the rivalry, and it's interesting to see that somebody. It seems like the perception of Florida now, they're finally starting to catch on to what's going on with Dan Mullen, and how competitive they are.
Yeah. So, buddy, they talked about the Ring of Honor was a big thing yesterday. I personally don't think they're going to put anybody in the Ring of Honor this year. I think
you're right.
I think there's something they're going to do with merchandising or something. But I personally, there's 3 people that are eligible to go in, and I don't know when they're going to go in. But I think they should go in this order, quite honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I think it should be Lomas and Carlos Alvarez. Lomas Brown and Carlos Alvarez need to kind of go in at the same time because they've waited a long time. They're both in the Hall of Fame, the College Football Hall of Fame and the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Mm-hmm.
And then Urban needs to go in. But I think those two need to go in before Urban, honestly.
Well, Urban is automatically qualified by, I'm told this. I don't know this.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's qualified. Those are the only 3 people that are qualified to even go in.
Yeah.
It's when are they going to go in? But Carlos Alvarez has been in the College Football Hall of Fame for a long time.
Yeah.
Lomas Brown's been in the College Football Hall of Fame and in the NFL Hall of Fame. So they need to go in, and then Urban after them, in my opinion.
I agree 100%. I don't know about the order. Well, I'm not sure about how but apparently they're not going to name a player, a new entrant. They're going to have some kind of a meeting on the 23rd, and they're going to announce something, but it's not going to be an inductee, I hear, like you said.
Correct.
So I think that's a good list to work off of. You know how much I love Carlos Alvarez and how much I feel like he's such a big part of the guy. Amazing numbers when you look at the games he played and what he did and what they accomplished. But, yeah, Carlos for sure. I don't think, and I'm going to be real honest about this, I don't think Florida's done a really great job of celebrating their African-American players, and it's a hard one. But the confusion, some of it starts with the trophies out front. And I think you brought this up. We talked about it, whether or not there should be another trophy or statue, out front. And some people say, well, why Emmitt Smith up there and whatever. Emmitt Smith deserves to be recognized in some fashion, but this is a Heisman. And you said this early on. This is a Heisman honor. Those are your 3 Heisman. It's just who happen to be. And I asked about that. There was some confusion about it, but that is the reason they're out there. Now, what they do otherwise, like, what Texas did, their first scholarship player, right?
Right. But Texas is they're naming the stadium after 2 Heisman winners.
I get it. I get it. Yeah.
If you're gonna go by like position by position and build statues or whatever, nothing against Emmett because I love Emmett, but Eric Rett's your all-time leading rusher.
Yeah. But is that what you're going by, numbers? I mean, that's the thing. Look, those players all need. I'm not saying build 50 statues, okay? I think that diminishes it. But there's got to be a way to honor it. I'll give you another one. It's not African American, but one guy says, "How about Wilbur Marshall statue?" And I can make a case for that. But this is we had kind of a blind eye to a lot of that great. I think Leonard George and Willie Jackson deserve something. I'm not saying statues, but they're the 2 first black players. And I think, you're talking about not just football here, as they did in Texas, Texas. And so there's some controversy there, but I'd like to see people get their just due. There's a lot of other things we could do. Look, what do you do with Jeremy Foley?
He I don't know if he goes in the Ring of Honor, but they're going to have to tweak it.
He can't go in the Ring of Honor. It's not for ADs. It's for players and coaches.
Well, they can tweak it. They can go back and put an amendment in there. But it's like this is just my personal opinion. I think it's silly that what you do is that once you leave the university should not have anything to do with what you did at the university. Right? You follow what I'm saying? What you do at the next level, in my opinion, has nothing to do with how you were as an athlete.
I'm with you on that. No, yeah. There's no question.
That's why they put in, because honestly, Emmett wouldn't be in if he wasn't the all-time leading rusher.
Right. In the NFL.
And somebody was talking to me about it, and they were upset about it too, because once you leave the university and do what you do in the NFL really has nothing to do with what you did as a college player.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Right. No, a Heisman Trophy winner got the award not for playing in the NFL. He got it for what he did in college. And that's a common mistake. And in baseball is the same thing. Sometimes players, you got to, for what your accomplishments are, you're exactly right on that. It's very, very important point to make and to make. But I like your lineup. I like your Alvarez and Lomas Brown and Urban should go in there at some point in time. And I think you're right. Hey, can I get one more question in? What do you know and think about the Paul Pasqualoni deal, being hired at Florida to work for Dan Mullen?
Well, I think it's going to be great. Was a really good college coach, knows defense. He's going to be one of those. He's not on the quote staff. He's one of those assistants or whatever they call them.
Special assistant to Dan Mullen.
Yeah. So what he will do is he will look at. He's a defensive guy, so he will look at the opposing team's offenses, and he'll help both sides of the football. But that's a guy that has a wealth of knowledge, been around the game a long time, and will definitely enhance that staff, no doubt about it.
Yeah. That's why Charlie Strong didn't come here, I'm told, was that Dan wanted him to be the scout, wanted to scout the other teams and talk about the other team's offense. And Charlie wanted to work on defense, so there's that might have been. Of course, he got a lot more money probably to go to Alabama because Nick throws money at people like you do.
Well, yeah, that's true. Charlie's probably not making much because he's still being paid. He's still being paid X amount of dollars, a lot of money from South Florida.
Yeah.
And and he still wants to get back into coaching. And I think a guy like Paul Pasqualoni, who is up there in age, probably says, heck, this is a great football program with a great coaching staff. I don't know if I ever want to coach, quote, coach again, where I have to go out and recruit and do all that stuff at my age. This is a way I can still be part of a team and, still coach some ball, but not have to do all the stuff that the regular coaching staff has to do. But no, I think it's a tremendous hire.
Gray-haired wisdom is really valuable these days.
Yep. Well, buddy, we're running out of time, my man.
All
We
right.
can talk for hours. Look forward to tonight, and we'll talk to you soon, my man.
Tonight, Shane's going to share all of his secrets of how he got Florida's program started in 1990 to set the tone. Grandmaster of the Gator football program, Shane Matthews. Tonight on the Buddy Martin Show. How's that for a prologue?
All right. That sounds great, buddy. Take care, my man.
See you. Thank you.
We appreciate everybody joining today. Today's show is a wrap brought to you by Wrap Spot. Make sure you tune in tomorrow. We got a great lineup. We got Kez McCorvey, my old high school teammate and FSU football player, and we have Robbie Andrews from the Gainesville Sun. Take care, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.